The clock on the nightstand reads 11:47 p.m. when I hear the knock. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed in room 23 of the Sunset Motor Lodge, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looks like a deformed butterfly. I've been living here for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of scratchy sheets that smell like bleach and cigarette smoke that seeps through the walls from the room next door. 3 weeks of $42 a night, slowly draining what little money I have left. My dinner tonight is 6 crackers and a bruised apple. That's all I can afford until I get paid on Friday. 4 more days of crackers and whatever else I can find. Everything I own in this world fits into 2 suitcases on the floor. One has clothes, the other has a few books, some papers, and a photo album I can't bring myself to throw away, even though every picture inside feels like a knife in my chest. I pull my thin cardigan tighter around my shoulders. The heating in this room doesn't work properly, and I'm too embarrassed to complain to the manager again. Beggars can't be choosers. That's what my grandmother used to say. The TV doesn't work either. The remote is missing batteries, and even if it wasn't, I think the whole thing is broken. So I sit here in the quiet, trying not to think about how I got here, trying not to see Brandon's face when he said those words. I deserve a real woman now. But the memories come anyway, like they do every night. Flashes of signing papers to sell our house, the house with the blue shutters and the garden where I'd planned to plant tomatoes. Flash of handing over my car keys to a stranger who paid me $3,000 cash. Flash of the pawn shop owner weighing my wedding ring in his hand, the ring Brandon slipped on my finger 7 years ago while promising to love me forever. $800, the pawn shop man had said, best I can do. I took it. I took it because Brandon was dying, and $800 meant one more treatment, one more chance, one more day of hope. $400,000. That's what it cost to save my husband's life. I gave everything. And when he recovered, when his cancer went into remission and his strength came back, he thanked me by filing for divorce. He took half of what little I had left. He took our business, the one we built together, and then he walked away to start his new life with someone better. Someone who hadn't worn herself down to nothing, trying to keep him alive. The knock startles me so badly, I actually gasp. 3 sharp raps on the door, loud and urgent. My heart starts pounding. Nobody knows I'm here. My mother thinks I'm staying with a friend. My old friends have stopped calling because I've canceled on them so many times. Who knocks on a motel room door at almost midnight? I sit frozen, barely breathing. The knock comes again, harder this time. I force myself to stand and tiptoe to the door. My hand shakes as I lean close to the peephole. The fisheye lens shows me a woman standing in the harsh fluorescent light of the outdoor walkway. She's young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She's wearing nice clothes, expensive-looking jeans, and a leather jacket. She keeps glancing over her shoulder like she's afraid someone followed her. Who is it? My voice sounds small and scared even through the door. My name is Vanessa Cole, the woman says. She's speaking fast, nervous. I need to talk to you about Brandon Morrison. Please. It's important. I know what he did to you. The air leaves my lungs. Brandon? This stranger knows Brandon. How does she know where I am? How does she know anything about me? Please. Vanessa says again, I know how this looks, but I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Brandon lied to both of us. Both of us? My hand moves to the deadbolt before my brain can tell it not to. Against every instinct screaming at me to leave the door locked, I slide the chain free and turn the handle. The door opens, and Vanessa Cole is standing there with tears in her eyes and a manila envelope clutched in both hands. I'm so sorry to come here this late, she says, and her voice cracks. But you need to see what's in here. You need to know the truth about what he did. I stare at the envelope, then at her face, then back at the envelope. What truth? I whisper. She takes a shaky breath. Everything he told you was a lie. I need to tell you how I got here. How a woman who once had everything ended up in a $42 motel room with a stranger at her door. So let me take you back to before everything fell apart. Back to when I still believed in happy endings. 7 years ago, I was 25 years old and working as a graphic designer for a small advertising agency in town. I wasn't making a lot of money, maybe $35,000 a year, but I loved my job. I had a tiny apartment with a balcony where I grew herbs, I had friends, I had plans. I was happy in that simple, uncomplicated way you can only be when you don't know what's coming. I met Brandon at a business networking event on a Thursday night in March. I almost didn't go because I was tired, and networking events always felt awkward. But my boss insisted, so I put on my best dress and showed up. Brandon was standing by the refreshment table, and when I walked past to get a bottle of water, he smiled at me. Not the creepy kind of smile some men give, a real smile that reached his eyes. "These cookies are terrible," he said, holding up something that looked like cardboard. "But I've eaten 3 of them because I don't know what else to do with my hands." I laughed. Just like that, we were talking. He told me he worked in sales at a printing company. I told him I was a designer. He was funny and easy to talk to, and before I knew it, an hour had passed, and we were still standing by that refreshment table. "Can I take you to dinner sometime?" he asked when the event was ending. "Somewhere with better cookies?" I said yes. Our first date was at a little Italian restaurant. Brandon was a gentleman. He opened doors, asked questions about my life, actually listened to my answers. He told me about his dreams of running his own business someday. His eyes lit up when he talked about the future, and I found myself wanting to be part of that future. We dated for a year. Brandon planned surprise picnic dates in the park. He left handwritten notes on my car windshield. He brought me flowers for no reason, just because he saw them and thought of me. My mother, Judy, met him after 3 months, and she pulled me aside in the kitchen. "He's a keeper, Claire," she said, squeezing my hand. "Don't let this one go." I had no intention of letting him go. Brandon proposed on a Saturday afternoon at Riverside Park, the same place where we'd had our first picnic. He got down on one knee right there on the grass, and I didn't even let him finish asking before I said yes. The ring was simple. A silver band with a small diamond, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at my mother's church. Nothing fancy because we were saving money, but it was perfect. Judy cried happy tears. Brandon's parents came in from 2 states away. Our friends filled the pews. When Brandon said his vows, promising to love me in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, I believed every word. I really, truly believed him. After the wedding, Brandon came to me with an idea that would change everything. "What if we started our own business?" he said one night over dinner. "A printing company. I know the industry. You're an amazing designer. We could be partners, in life and in business." I was nervous. Starting a business was risky. We'd have to take out loans, use our savings, work crazy hours, but Brandon was so confident, so sure we could make it work. "We'll build something amazing together," he promised, taking my hands across the table. Think about it. We'd be our own bosses, building our future with our own hands. So I agreed. We launched Morrison Print Solutions with a small business loan and every dollar we'd saved. The first year nearly broke us. We worked 14-hour days, ate ramen noodles to save money, slept on a mattress on the floor of our apartment because we'd sold our bed frame to buy a printer. But slowly, month by month, the business grew. We landed our first big client, then another. We hired employees. We moved into a real office with our names on the door. By our 5th anniversary, we were actually doing well. Not rich, but comfortable. We bought a 3-bedroom house with blue shutters. I got a reliable car, nothing fancy but mine. We talked about having kids soon, maybe getting a dog first. Life was good. Better than good. I had a husband I loved, a business we built together, a future that looked bright. On our anniversary, Brandon took me to the same Italian restaurant from our first date. We ordered wine and clinked our glasses together. "Here's to forever," Brandon said, his eyes meeting mine. "To forever," I repeated. I meant it with every piece of my heart. I had no idea that forever was about to come crashing down. It started with a cough. Just a small thing, really. Brandon would clear his throat during meetings or cough a little at night. I didn't think much of it at first. People cough. It's normal. But after 3 weeks, the cough was still there, and it was getting worse. "You should see a doctor," I told him one morning when he couldn't stop coughing long enough to drink his coffee. "It's nothing," he said, waving me off. "Just allergies or something. You know how I get in the fall." Except it wasn't fall. It was February. Then other things started happening. Brandon came home from work exhausted, like climbing the stairs to our bedroom took all his energy. He'd fall asleep on the couch at 7 in the evening. On weekends, he barely got out of bed. "Maybe you're working too hard," I said, worried now. "Probably," he agreed. "I'll take it easy." But the exhaustion got worse. And then I noticed he was losing weight. His shirts hung looser on his shoulders. His face looked thinner. When I mentioned it, he just shrugged. "Stress," he said. "I'll be fine." The night sweats started in March. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, and the sheets would be soaked through. Brandon would be shivering beside me, his skin cold and clammy. "That's it," I said after the third night in a row. "You're seeing a doctor. I don't care if you think it's nothing. I'm making an appointment and you're going." He finally agreed, probably just to get me to stop nagging. I remember sitting in that waiting room like it was yesterday, flipping through magazines that were 6 months old, looking at my phone. Not worried at all, really. Just annoyed that we were wasting our Tuesday afternoon. The doctor came out and called Brandon back. I stayed in the waiting room, still not concerned. But then the doctor asked me to come back too, and something in his voice made my stomach drop. That first appointment led to more appointments. Blood work, x-rays, CT scans, MRI scans. Each time, the doctor's faces got more serious. Each time, my fear grew bigger. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday in October, 7 months after that first cough. Stage 3 cancer. Aggressive, fast-growing, already spread to lymph nodes. I sat in that cold office with its educational posters on the walls and heard the doctor say words I didn't fully understand. Medical terms, percentages, treatment options. But I understood enough to know that my husband was very, very sick. "Without treatment, the prognosis is not good," the doctor said gently. "But with aggressive treatment, we have a fighting chance." We left the office and made it to the parking lot before Brandon broke down. This strong, confident man, who always had a plan for everything, sat in the passenger seat of my car and sobbed like a child. "I don't want to die," he whispered. "Claire, I'm not ready. I don't want to die." I held him and made him a promise. "You won't. We're going to fight this with everything we have. Whatever it takes, Brandon." Whatever it takes. The oncologist laid out the treatment plan at our next appointment. Chemotherapy, 12 rounds. Radiation, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. Possibly surgery after that, depending on how the tumors responded. And then came the money talk. Our insurance would cover some of it, but not all. Not even close to all. There were deductibles, co-pays, medications that cost thousands of dollars per dose. Treatments the insurance company called experimental, which meant they wouldn't pay. Out-of-network specialists who were the best in their field, but didn't take our insurance. The total cost could be $300,000, the financial counselor told us. Maybe $400,000, maybe more, depending on complications. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. We didn't have that kind of money. We had maybe $30,000 in savings. The house had some equity, but we'd only owned it for 2 years. The business was doing okay, but we just bought new equipment. "What do we do?" Brandon asked, looking at me with eyes full of fear. I didn't hesitate. Not for 1 second. "We sell whatever we need to sell," I said firmly. "The house, my car, I don't care. None of it matters if you're not here." Brandon pulled me close and cried into my shoulder. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. Looking back now, I hear the truth in those words. But at the time, I just held him tighter. The treatment started the following week. I watched the love of my life transform into someone I barely recognized. His hair fell out in clumps. His skin turned gray and papery. He threw up constantly, violently. Some days he was too weak to stand. And the bills started coming. Envelopes with numbers that made me want to scream. $5,000, $8,000, $12,000. They kept coming and coming. I refinanced the house first, pulling out every bit of equity. It bought us 2 months. Then I put the house on the market. We moved into a small apartment, and I put that money toward the medical bills. I sold my car to a stranger for $3,000 cash, started taking the bus to work, to the hospital, everywhere. I sold my wedding ring to a pawn shop. $800 for the ring Brandon had given me with trembling hands and a voice full of love. My mother tried to help. She offered me money from her retirement account, but I refused at first. "He's family," she insisted. "Take it, Claire." So I did. Because I had no choice. I sold everything. Jewelry. My nice clothes, my laptop, anything worth money went to strangers, and that money went to keeping Brandon alive. I had no time for friends anymore. No time for anything except work and the hospital and fighting with insurance companies on the phone. I was so tired I could barely see straight, but I never complained. Because Brandon was fighting for his life, and this was how I fought for him. I sat beside his hospital bed one night, holding his thin hand, and whispered, "We'll get through this. I promise." He squeezed my hand weakly and closed his eyes. I believed we would survive this together. I really did. Months crawled by, 10 months of watching Brandon suffer, 10 months of bills I couldn't pay fast enough, 10 months of selling everything I owned and praying it would be enough. But then something wonderful started happening. Brandon began to get better. The color came back to his face. He could keep food down. He had energy again, could walk without getting winded. The doctors started using beautiful words like responding well and tumor shrinkage, and finally, incredibly, remission. I cried in the hospital bathroom, tears of pure relief. Every sacrifice had been worth it. I'd gotten my husband back. We moved into an even smaller apartment because we still had massive debt, but I didn't care. Brandon was alive. We could rebuild everything else together. Except Brandon was different now. At first, I thought it was normal. He'd been through something traumatic. Of course he needed time to adjust. But the changes kept coming. And they weren't the kind I expected. He became obsessed with his phone. He'd sit on the couch scrolling for hours, smiling at the screen. When I asked what he was looking at, he'd turn it away. "Just work stuff," he'd say. He started caring about his appearance again, which I thought was a good sign. He bought new clothes, even though we were drowning in debt. When I mentioned we couldn't afford it, he got annoyed. "I need to look professional for clients," he said. "I'm trying to rebuild our business." He joined a gym, started going every morning before work, bought teeth whitening strips, spent 20 minutes in the bathroom doing his hair. "I'm glad you're feeling like yourself again," I said, trying to be supportive. But something felt wrong. Then the comments started. Little cuts that felt like paper cuts at first. Small but stinging. "Are you really wearing that to the grocery store?" he asked one Saturday when I put on my old jeans. "What's wrong with them?" "Nothing, I guess, if you don't care how you look." I looked down at my clothes. They were worn out, sure, but I'd sold all my nice clothes to pay for his treatment. "Another day," he said, "maybe you should do something different with your hair. It's looking kind of dead." I touched my hair self-consciously. I couldn't afford haircuts anymore. I trimmed it myself in the bathroom. "You've put on weight, haven't you?" he said one night, looking at me critically. I had. About 15 pounds. Because I was stressed and exhausted and eating whatever cheap food I could afford and had no time or energy for exercise. "I've been busy," I said quietly, "taking care of you, running our business alone." Brandon just shrugged and went back to his phone. He stopped saying he loved me. Just stopped. The words disappeared from our conversations like they'd never existed. He started coming home late from work. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Once, almost midnight. "Where were you?" I asked, trying not to sound suspicious. "Rebuilding client relationships," he said. "You know how much business we lost while I was sick. I'm trying to fix it." Sometimes he smelled like perfume, sweet and floral, nothing I owned. "Why do you smell like that?" I asked. His face went hard. "Seriously? You're going to accuse me of something after everything I've been through?" "I'm meeting with clients, Claire. Some of them are women. I can't control if they wear perfume." I felt guilty for even asking. He'd almost died. He deserved time to readjust, to feel normal again. But we weren't normal. We were strangers, sharing an apartment. He stopped touching me, stopped looking at me. We slept in the same bed with a mile of space between us. When I tried to talk about it, he'd shut down or start a fight. "I'm stressed," he'd snap. "Can you just give me space?" So I gave him space. I gave him everything he asked for because I didn't know what else to do. Then came the Thursday that changed everything. I came home from my new job at the copy shop, tired and smelling like toner. Brandon was sitting at our tiny kitchen table with papers in front of him. Legal-looking papers. "Sit down," he said. Not kindly, like a command. I sat, my heart starting to pound. "I want a divorce," he said. Just like that. Flat, emotionless. Like he was telling me he wanted pizza for dinner. The world stopped moving. "What?" "I've thought about this a lot," Brandon said, still not looking at me. "We're not right for each other anymore. I've changed. This whole experience changed me. I changed too." My voice cracked. "I changed because I gave up everything to save your life." "And I appreciate that," he said in a tone that sounded nothing like appreciation. "But I can't stay married to you out of obligation. I almost died, Claire. That changes a person. It made me realize that life is short, and I need to live it for myself now. Is there someone else?" The question fell out of my mouth. "That's not what this is about." "Answer me, Brandon." He finally looked up, and his eyes were cold. Colder than I'd ever seen them. These weren't the eyes of the man who'd promised to love me forever. "I deserve to be with a real woman now," he said. "Someone who takes care of herself. Someone successful. Someone more than what you are." The words hit me like a slap. A real woman. After everything I'd sacrificed, every piece of myself I'd given up to keep him alive, I wasn't real enough. Wasn't good enough. "You don't mean that," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Brandon pushed the papers across the table. "I already filed. My lawyer will contact you." Then he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out the door. I sat alone in that apartment, staring at the divorce papers, unable to believe that this was how our forever ended. The divorce destroyed me piece by piece. Brandon hired Thomas Reed, a lawyer with a fancy office downtown and a reputation for winning. I could barely afford any lawyer at all. I found someone who charged reasonable rates, a tired-looking man named George, who worked out of a strip mall office. He did his best, but he was no match for Thomas Reed. Brandon wanted half of everything. His lawyer kept saying community property over and over like it was some kind of magic spell. Never mind that there was almost nothing left because I'd sold it all to save Brandon's life. Never mind that I'd sacrificed everything while he planned his escape. The law didn't care about that. The real fight was over Morrison Print Solutions. Our business. The one we'd built together. The one I'd kept alive while Brandon was too sick to work. Thomas Reed stood in that courtroom and argued that Brandon's sales expertise and client relationships were the foundation of the business. He made me sound like I just made things look pretty. Like I was barely important at all. I tried to explain, tried to show the judge bank statements proving I'd funded Brandon's treatment from business accounts and my own money. But Reed had answers for everything. "My client never asked her to sell her belongings," he said smoothly. "Those were gifts given freely during a marriage. My client was fighting for his life and had no say in financial decisions." I wanted to scream, but I just sat there, watching my life get divided up like it meant nothing. The judge was sympathetic to my situation. I could see it in her eyes, but she was bound by law. Community property was community property. In the end, I lost the business. Brandon's team structured it so he bought me out, but the business had so much debt from the money I'd pulled for his treatment that my half was almost worthless. The buyout was $18,000. $18,000 was all I had left from everything we'd built. Brandon got the business. Got to keep the career, the clients, the future. He got his health back. He got everything. And he got her. I saw them together by accident at a coffee shop 2 weeks after the divorce was final. I'd gone in to buy the cheapest coffee on the menu, a small treat I could barely afford. And there they were at a corner table. She was beautiful. Late 20s, perfect makeup, wearing clothes that probably cost more than my rent. She was laughing at something Brandon said, her hand on his arm. And Brandon looked happy. Really, genuinely happy. Happier than he'd looked with me in years. He had his arm around her waist, leaning in close, looking at her the way he used to look at me. I left before they could see me, walked straight out and cried on the bus ride back to my apartment. My mother called that night. I told her about seeing them together. "That man is pure evil," Judy said, her voice shaking with anger. "After everything you did for him, I wish I had money for a better lawyer, baby. I wish I could fix this. It's over, Mom, I said, feeling empty. I just need to start over. But starting over was harder than I thought. I couldn't afford the apartment anymore, moved to a cheaper one across town. Then moved again 3 months later to something even cheaper. Each place was worse than the last. I needed a job. My resume had gaps from when I was caring for Brandon. The design industry had moved on without me. Younger designers with cheaper rates were everywhere. I finally got hired at PrintFast, a copy shop in a strip mall. $12 an hour. It was humiliating, working at someone else's print shop after owning my own. But I needed money. Even with the job, I was drowning. After rent, utilities, food, and my bus pass, there was nothing left. Some weeks I asked my mother for grocery money, which killed me inside. She was living on retirement income and couldn't afford to support me. I wore the same 4 outfits to work on rotation, stopped answering calls from old friends because I couldn't afford to meet them for coffee or lunch. What would I even say to them? How do you explain that your entire life collapsed? Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. Some mornings I couldn't get out of bed. I'd call in sick to work and just lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the point was. I'd done everything right, loved completely, sacrificed everything, and I'd been thrown away like I was nothing. Then I got evicted. My landlord needed to renovate and wanted me out in 30 days. With my terrible credit and no savings, I couldn't find another apartment. Nobody would rent to me. That's how I ended up at the Sunset Motor Lodge. $42 a night, weekly rate slightly cheaper if I paid up front. The man at the front desk didn't ask questions, didn't run credit checks, just took my cash and handed me a key. Just temporary, I told myself, just until I get back on my feet. But weeks passed and I was still there, still stuck in that room with the stained carpet and broken TV, still eating crackers for dinner, still wondering how I'd ended up here. I thought about calling my mother and asking to stay with her, but Judy lived in a tiny 1-bedroom senior apartment. There was no room for me. So I stayed at the motel, day after day, week after week. I'd lie on that bed and stare at the water stain on the ceiling, feeling completely hollow inside. This was my life now. This was what all my love and sacrifice had bought me. Nothing. Now I'm back in the present moment, standing in my motel room doorway, staring at this stranger named Vanessa Cole, who says she knows the truth about Brandon. What truth? I ask again, my voice barely a whisper. Vanessa glances down the walkway one more time, then looks at me with desperate eyes. Can I please come in? I know this is crazy, but I promise I'm not here to hurt you. I need to show you something. I step aside. What do I have to lose at this point? My life is already destroyed. Vanessa walks in and sits on the edge of my bed, the same spot I'd been sitting before she knocked. She's clutching that manila envelope so tight her knuckles are white. Up close, I can see she's been crying. Her mascara is smudged under her eyes. How do you know Brandon? I ask, even though part of me already knows the answer. I was his girlfriend, Vanessa says quietly. After your divorce. For 8 months. My stomach turns. So she's the woman from the coffee shop, the beautiful one who had everything I used to have. He told me you were crazy, Vanessa continues, not meeting my eyes. He said you walked away from the marriage and tried to destroy his business out of spite. I believed him. I'm so sorry, but I believed every word. I sit down on the only chair in the room, my legs suddenly weak. We dated for 8 months, she says. In the beginning, he was perfect, romantic, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. But then things changed. He started lying about small things. Where he'd been, who he was with. He became secretive with his phone, his money. This sounds familiar. Too familiar. When I questioned him, he got mean. Vanessa's voice shakes. Started criticizing everything about me. My clothes, my hair, my weight. Told me I was too needy, too dramatic. I started feeling crazy, like nothing I did was good enough. I know exactly what she means. I lived it. 2 weeks ago, I found out he was cheating on me, she says, with another woman. Someone from his gym. When I confronted him, he dumped me on the spot. Said I was too clingy. Said he deserved better than me. He said he deserved a real woman. I whisper. Vanessa's head snaps up. He said that to you too? I nod. He's a monster, Vanessa says, anger flashing in her eyes. After he dumped me, I was furious. I wanted to know who I'd really been dating. So I started digging. That's when I found out about you. The real story, not his lies. She opens the manila envelope with shaking hands and pulls out papers. Bank statements, medical documents, insurance forms. I have a friend who works in medical billing at the hospital, Vanessa explains. I asked her to look into Brandon's treatment costs. Claire, he lied to you. About everything. My heart starts pounding so hard I can hear it. What do you mean? Vanessa spreads papers across my bed. His insurance covered way more than he told you. Look at this. His policy had a maximum out-of-pocket cost of $25,000 per year. After that, everything was covered 100%. I stare at the insurance documents, trying to make sense of the numbers. That's impossible. He showed me bills. He said insurance wouldn't pay. He deliberately used out-of-network doctors, Vanessa says, pointing to another document. See, he had in-network options that would have been fully covered. But he chose expensive out-of-network specialists on purpose. And even then, look at this. He filed claims for reimbursement afterward. The insurance company sent him checks. Thousands and thousands of dollars. Money he never told you about. The room is spinning. I pick up another paper. It's a bank statement for an account I've never seen. An account in Brandon's name only. The deposits go back 2 years. $10,000. $15,000, $8,000. Over and over. He had a secret bank account, Vanessa says. He was putting money there while you were selling your house, your car, your wedding ring, insurance reimbursements, business income he hid from you, even loans he took out in the business name that never went to medical bills. I can't breathe. My hands are shaking so badly I drop the papers. How much? I manage to ask. At least $120,000 that I can prove, Vanessa says. Probably more that I haven't found yet. All those months of sacrifice, sleeping on crackers and hope, selling everything I owned, taking the bus in the rain, pawning my wedding ring, and he had money the entire time. He watched me destroy myself and said nothing. He committed fraud, Vanessa says firmly. Against you, against the insurance companies, against the court during your divorce. He hid assets. This is illegal, Claire. Seriously illegal. Tears are streaming down my face, but they're not sad tears anymore. They're angry tears, furious tears. Why are you helping me? I ask. You don't even know me. Vanessa looks me straight in the eyes. Because he destroyed you to get what he wanted. And he almost did the same thing to me. Because what he did is evil, and someone needs to stop him. She pauses. I talked to a lawyer friend of mine. With this evidence, you can take him back to court. You can get back what he stole from you. For the first time in months, I feel something besides despair and exhaustion. I feel hope, and rage, and determination. I look at Vanessa, then at the papers scattered across my bed. Proof. Real, solid proof that Brandon is exactly what I'm starting to realize he always was. A liar, a thief, a man who let me sacrifice everything while he built his escape plan. Tell me what I need to do, I say, and my voice doesn't shake anymore. It's strong. Ready. I'm done being a victim. What happened next wasn't fast, and it wasn't easy, but it was worth every single moment. Vanessa introduced me to her lawyer friend, a woman named Patricia who handled fraud cases. When Patricia saw the evidence spread across the table in her office, she actually smiled. This is solid, Patricia said, flipping through the bank statements. Very solid. He committed fraud during your divorce by hiding assets. That's serious, and judges do not like being lied to. I couldn't afford to pay her. I had maybe $300 to my name, but Patricia said she'd work on contingency, meaning she only got paid if we won. I hate men like your ex-husband, Patricia said, looking me straight in the eye. Let's take him down. We filed motions to reopen the divorce case based on fraud and newly discovered evidence. We filed complaints with the insurance companies Brandon had scammed. We gathered every document, every record, every lie he'd told and put it all in front of a judge. Brandon's lawyer, Thomas Reed, tried to fight back. tried to make excuses. But you can't argue with bank statements. You can't explain away a secret account filled with money that should have been disclosed during a divorce. The court hearing was 3 months after Vanessa knocked on my motel room door. I sat in that courtroom wearing clothes Vanessa had loaned me because I still didn't own anything nice. Brandon sat across the aisle in an expensive suit, looking confident at first. But when the judge started asking him questions, his confidence cracked. "Mr. Morrison," the judge said, holding up the bank statements, "did you or did you not have this account during your divorce proceedings?" Brandon shifted in his seat. "Yes, but... And did you disclose this account to the court?" "I didn't think it was relevant." "Did you disclose it?" "Yes or no?" "No." The judge's face hardened. "And is it true that while your wife was selling her home and possessions to pay for your medical treatment, you were depositing insurance reimbursements into this hidden account?" Brandon tried to explain, tried to make it sound less terrible than it was, but there was no good way to say it. The courtroom was silent except for his stammering excuses. The judge was not having it. When she delivered her ruling 2 weeks later, her words were sharp and clear. The original divorce settlement was thrown out. The business valuation was recalculated with all the hidden money included. The buyout price I'd received was declared fraudulent. I was awarded 70% of the business value, my original 50%, plus damages for fraud. I got half of everything in Brandon's secret account. I got compensation for the assets I'd sold under false circumstances. The total came to $206,000. It wasn't the $400,000 I'd spent saving his life, but it was enough. It was more than enough to start over. Brandon also faced consequences from the insurance companies. They filed criminal charges for insurance fraud. He ended up with heavy fines, penalties, and a criminal record. When clients found out what he'd done, they left. His reputation was completely destroyed. And that new girlfriend he'd left Vanessa for, she disappeared the second the scandal hit the news. I watched it all happen with Vanessa by my side. We'd become real friends through this whole process, bonded by surviving the same terrible man. "Thank you," I told her over coffee one afternoon. "Real coffee from a real cafe, not motel room crackers. You saved my life." "We saved each other," Vanessa said, smiling. With the settlement money, I did 3 things right away. First, I paid my mother back every single dollar she'd given me, plus extra for a cruise she'd always wanted to take. She cried and tried to refuse, but I insisted. She'd been there when I had nothing. Second, I found a real apartment, one with windows that let in sunlight and appliances that worked. I bought a used car, nothing fancy but reliable. I bought clothes that fit and made me feel human again. Third, I started my own design business. Not a print shop this time, a digital agency. Just me, working from home, building a client list based on honest work. It started small, but it was mine. Built on truth instead of lies. Life got better slowly. Not perfect. I still had days where the betrayal hurt like a fresh wound, days where I couldn't believe what Brandon had done. But I also had good days. Days where I felt proud of myself for surviving, for fighting back, for winning. I went to therapy, reconnected with old friends, learned that I could trust again, carefully and slowly, but truly. 1 year after that knock on my motel room door, Vanessa and I met for lunch to celebrate. We'd both come so far. "I still can't believe you found me that night," I said. "I had to," Vanessa replied. What he did was wrong. Someone had to stop him. I thought about the woman I'd been the one who loved so completely she gave up everything. That woman wasn't weak. She was strong. Strong enough to sacrifice. Strong enough to survive the betrayal. And strong enough to fight back and win. I wasn't bitter anymore. I didn't hate Brandon, though I'd never forgive him either. I just didn't care about him anymore. I was free. Free from his lies. Free from the pain. Free to build a new life on my own terms. And that freedom was worth more than any amount of money he could have stolen. I'd lost everything and found myself again. Found out I was stronger than I ever knew. The girl in the motel room eating crackers was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, who wouldn't settle, who wouldn't be broken. I was finally truly free.